What about that Omari Thomas cat announcing that he's going to be back? How big is that? We shall discuss. It is today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, let me turn it to you, Caleb. You wrote the column yesterday. Omari Thomas is a big pickup, not just in stature, but as an impact. I want to share my thoughts on that. But first, you tell me, why is this so big for Tennessee? Omari, I'm thinking would have been around, based on people I'm talking to, probably a third, fourth round pick. Maybe a little bit later. You never know until you hit the combine and all that stuff. But for Tennessee, he's a proven solid player that is very good. Why is this a big pickup for the Vols?
This is a huge pickup for Tennessee in a few ways. He's a proven solid player. He's a leader. He's one of the leaders of the team, along with Keenan Peely, who is also back, by the way. And he's a very unselfish player. Now, it's funny, Dave, if you had asked me, and this is going to be the craziest thing you may think I say, but
that would be something, because you've been out there. You've got Nico winning the Heisman. You've said a couple of crazy things lately, but I believe in you.
So, is Walter Nolan a better talent than Omari Thomas? Yes, but if you ask me if I'm a Tennessee fan, do I want Walter Nolan to commit or Omari Thomas to return? I'd rather Omari Thomas return, just for his leadership and chemistry. And I think he's just that type of guy. I interviewed him in SEC Media Days. Again, it's not every day you bring a defensive tackle to represent your defense at SEC Media Days, right, Dave? That's not common. And he really did step into that leadership role. He loves playing for Tennessee. He's the type of guy, you hate to sound sappy, but it's because he likes playing for Tennessee. If the best he can do on a day is maybe an 80 out of 100, he'll give you an 85 in Madden ratings. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
It makes sense. And let's factor this in as well. Omari Thomas is an in-state kid, and I know Walter Nolan kind of is, but he had moved around a lot. No, I agree. I would take Omari Thomas over Walter Nolan. It's interesting you bring him up. I think Thomas is more of a for sure thing, whereas Walter Nolan, you don't really know. And you would let's talk finances for a second, which we never thought we'd do. If you have to pay a Walter Nolan, does it make it more difficult to keep a guy that you know like Omari? Because I'm sure Omari got some cash out of the deal. I mean, it's NIL, and or Cooper Mace. I mean, could you have gotten financially those three guys, or is Nolan the odd man out? I don't know, but I would think Omari you would have, and Cooper for that matter, you've got a little more leverage saying stay in town, you're an in-state kid, so you probably get them a little cheaper than you'd have to go out and outbid, which we saw this with Dante Thornton. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but Dante Thornton was clearly an outbid thing. He went to three different schools, got a number, went to the school that had the highest number. Intrinsically, I think there's a problem philosophically with that, right? So you've got a guy in Omari Hand that wants to stay, I believe, for more than just cash.
Amari Thomas, not Omari Hand. Your age is showing, Dave. That's 2002.
I knew I would do that. Omari Thomas.
No, you're right. You have a guy who, and I wonder if that's what Josh Heupel's told his boosters, by the way, to say, hey, cobble up money to keep, because I said there's four guys you need to keep. Two of them are already back, Omari Thomas and Keenan Peely. The other two, Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins. I wonder if Josh Heupel was like, you know what? You could probably keep all four of those guys for the same amount of NIL money that Walter Nolan's going to ask for on the open market. Well, that's not even a question at that point, right, Dave? You take the money, you use the money to get the other four guys back. Easily, two of them outweigh Walter Nolan. You can get all four of them. And, my brother actually texted me this recently, and I forgot about it. And it kind of made me sour on Walter Nolan a little bit. I forgot about the Tennessee game. Remember when he kind of just wanted to leave the field because he got dinged up and he wasn't really that hurt? And there just seems to be a toughness issue with him, if I'm going to be honest. And I don't know if, with defensive line, I get it. You want to get to the NFL, but you wonder because of that, is he going overboard to protect his body and not go all out to make sure he's safe for the NFL?
There you go. Hit the like and
question.
subscribe button. Well, I mean, he may be. And I've seen kids like that before. We're going to talk about a guy that was affected in a positive manner later, and Reggie White. And he didn't have a good junior year. He had a great senior year. It may be the flip with Walter Nolan. He may be trying to skate through college. I don't know the kid. I don't know that. I just know that at the end of the day, what you get with Omari Thomas is you get what Kirby Smart said that he had to have when he got to Georgia, and that was the big dudes, big athletic dudes up front. He just came out and said it. He might as well have said Mark Richt can't recruit defensive linemen, because he just came out and said you got to have the big athletic guys up front. So let's look at Tennessee's defensive line now. Let's assume that James Pierce is fine with the legal issue that he's facing, which we believe to be very minor, or at least somewhat minor. What does Tennessee's defensive line look like next year?
If assuming Omar Norman-Lott comes back, and people keep asking that, guys, I don't see any reason Omar Norman-Lott would leave. What leverage? I mean, no disrespect, but I don't think he has that type of leverage. And I like Omar Norman-Lott, but I don't think he has the type of leverage to go to the NFL or NIL. Omari Thomas and Omar Norman-Lott in the middle. At some point, you got to think Tyree West is going to emerge, right? He was so highly touted on the recruiting trail. Dave, do you know why he hasn't broken out yet? Is he just buried because of all the talent ahead of him, or?
I don't know. And I will say this: you start getting into depth. I'm not going to pretend to tell you that Tennessee is where Georgia or Alabama is, but as far as the frontline guys and the guys that are going to be there in the clutch time in the fourth quarter, it's a pretty good group if Tyler Barron comes back. And
I was going to break with you on that. I don't think it's a big deal if he comes back. If he's at the front line, because you got James Pierce and Joshua Josephs.
You wouldn't turn him down though for depth, right? Especially
No,
with
you
the
don't
offense
turn him.
Tennessee.
You don't turn him down, but you're not totally lost or in trouble if he doesn't come back. And Shandavian Bradley, by the way, don't forget about him. Dylan just posted on the message board, David Hobbs. Remember, Tennessee's recruited well at edge rusher. A lot of guys just didn't see the field this year because of how deep they were.
Yep, absolutely right. Fred filling had some people ask on the message board. Fred feeling a little bit under the weather today, so we'll reconnect with him later on. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. I like Tyler Barron maybe a little bit more than you do, but I do agree with Smoky Mountain Red on our message board. Tyler is torching bridges in Knoxville. I think that's something that needs to be said to all these guys, and they're not going to listen. I'm an old guy. To them, you're an old guy, Caleb. But to be a local guy and to play at Tennessee, whatever happens with the NFL, you're going to be taken care of as long as you keep your nose clean and play hard. I would tell Tyler Barron that. It's a community that has supported incoming guys via NIL, but I can't tell you the amount of players that played for Tennessee and kept their nose clean and played hard and came out with a job offer of 6 digits. Easy. Whether it's pharmaceutical sales or whatever it is. I know every single player thinks they're going to play football for the rest of their life and they're going to get a gold jacket and they're going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame. But Caleb, that's not the case. And I would encourage Tyler Barron to think about that. But I think Barron would be a significant retainment. I mean, you wouldn't say pickup because he's technically on the roster. However, it does rub me the wrong way a little bit that he seems to be trying to hold Tennessee for hostage a little bit and check his worth in the transfer portal. I mean, this is his second time in the portal, right?
Yeah, and his first time was 2021. Now, there's a little bit, his father, Patrick Abernathy, worked on the support staff for Tennessee the first time he was in the portal. I don't believe he works at Tennessee anymore. So I don't know if there's something going on there from a personal level, but you're right. It's funny. Tyler Barron is from the Knoxville area. Omari Thomas is from Memphis, which, as you and I know, is a totally different. It's a different country almost. from Knoxville. If you for anybody national who's been to the two cities, and it seems like Omari Thomas is more in love with being at Tennessee. And
yeah, but you're a Memphian for those that don't know. I mean, there was always that Tennessee in you, and then when you went to UT, I imagine you were pretty much 100% converted Tennessee guy. I mean, once you make that move as a high school prospect, I consider you an in-state guy. When you're being recruited out of Memphis, I barely consider that in-state.
Well, and also you got to remember what Tennessee does, and Philip Fulmer was the best at this, and Pruitt focused on this too. What they do is they build pipelines to certain Memphis schools because they knew where the talent. So when you were covering Tennessee, it was Melrose. That's where Madre Dickerson and Andre Lott came out of, and Cedric Wilson. All those kids came out of Melrose. Actually, one of them may have come out of East, but it was Melrose was the pipeline. Now the private schools, Briarcrest, and I believe it would be MUS and a couple others, maybe Lausanne, they get a lot of the elite talent, and there's a pipeline that goes with that. So Omari Thomas went to Briarcrest, and you're right. The pipeline is so strong. They're being recruited by sophomores, and they're already in love with Tennessee. And the minute they come, and you're right, Omari Thomas is, even though he's from Memphis, so far away, he gives off the vibe of an in-state guy that loves being at Tennessee. And part of it is, again, I think he just, as a defensive tackle, he understands the nature of playing defensive tackle, which more than any other position, that's like that in offensive line, that is like where you're going to war with your brothers, right? That's like the old school football. You're going to war with your brothers, and the blood, sweat, and you're pouring it out for them. I think Omari Thomas feels that playing up on the line.
That's fair. Andy Mason, realestate.com brings you today's tough question. Real estate experts with over 4 decades of experience. Andy Mason, realestate.com, and best prices, best service in the biz. It is that clear. So today's tough question: how big is Omari and Thomas? Thomas is return to Tennessee. I think it's monstrous. I think Tennessee is a Cooper Mays away from, and don't be surprised if that happens in the next couple of days. I think they're a Cooper Mays return away from this being a win in terms of the guys they lose with or without Tyler Barron. I, unlike you, would call it a big win if Barron came back, because I've heard nothing about him that maybe his unease about being at Tennessee and checking in the transfer portal has affected his play. If I'd heard that, I would certainly tell you. Now, the question I would like for you to take part on is our poll question today. How do you feel about the Vols incoming class and returnees? So if you're on the YouTube page, when you vote, keep in mind, this is the returnees. This is the transfers, which Tennessee doesn't have any yet, and this is also the high school prospects. So right now, how do you feel about the Vols incoming class and returnees? You can vote on the YouTube. I got 50% great, let's rock. 45% would be it's okay, could be better, and 5% said worried, really worried. Where would you put yourself in those 3 options? I would be okay, it could be better. I think you're being a little bit overly optimistic if you're like, it's great. It's not a great class. It may turn into a great class, but I would say, okay, could be better at this point.
Man, with the people returning, though, I'm almost leaning great. Let's rock. But it's kind of reserved judgment, because let's see what Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins do. Dave, if those 2 come back, I'm a great let's rock. That outweighs the look, I cover recruiting a lot. You've covered it religiously. I'm not saying recruiting's not important, but returning guys that have been there for a long time with 5th and 6th years of eligibility, that's going to outweigh it with what Tennessee has coming next year with Nico starting at quarterback. So if Cooper and Javonte Spraggins come back, that outweighs needing a top 10 recruiting class, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I'm thinking long-term too. I'm thinking 2025 and 2026. I know you talk about loaded up for 2024, but
lightning. Do you believe in the lightning in the bottle theory? 2024 could be lightning in a bottle for Tennessee, and then the chips fall where they will in 2025 and 2026.